Hey guys, how's it going? Today I wanted to talk about the competitive scene in TF2, and I want to talk about the state it's in, because I actually have a few ideas as to the state it's in right now, and also the state it's going to be in the future. These are my genuine beliefs. If you disagree with them, I really don't mind if you dislike this video. It's really up to you. Anyway, what I wanted to get at was my beliefs as to how competitive TF2 is going to go. The way TF2 has been for the last 8 years is it's been very stagnant. Like, it's been growing a bit, but the thing is, it hasn't been growing enough to be in a necessary level. If you think about every other game that's been around at the moment, like CS, Dota, StarCraft, literally any MOBA, it's growing rapidly. It's just a huge growth. And the main comparison you can use against that, I don't want to be a massive nerd here, is bacteria. In bacteria, there's a lag phase, there's a log phase, there's a stationary phase, there's a decline phase, and there's a death phase. I feel like this fits the competitive scene of many esports very well, because what happens is a game will start off and there'll be a delay because the game will come out, people are getting used to it. This is the lag phase. As soon as people want to get involved in the competitive scene because they see it as a competitive game, there's a log phase where people start flowing into the game at a rapid pace. As soon as there's a really full and wholesome community, it continues to grow rapidly. But what happens is it doesn't grow as rapidly as it did in the start, causing what is called a stationary phase, where it stays at a stationary phase. The problem with TF2 is it almost skipped the log phase. It just went straight from lag to stationary. It never grew that necessary level it had to become a serious esport for many, because it's never really seen as the most competitive esport in the world because it never really was big enough to begin with. It never really got that big, and the issue with it getting bigger now is that it's very difficult for new players to come in on the stationary phase of a game. What happens is, I'm sounding like a serious dumbass here, but what happens in the stationary phase is there's already a huge amount of players and watchers and people who are involved in the game who all understand the game at a great in-depth level, and they won't really like to put up with people who are just joining the game and don't understand anything. Now, for every 5 that do mind putting up people like that, there's 1 that doesn't, and that's just the way it is. And the problem with TF2 is, as people try to join during this stationary phase, and in quotation marks, a lot of new casual players aren't really trying to get the serious thing that is competitive TF2. They're just trying to play at a harder level. And the problem with that is they don't really understand the necessary things like rollouts, like protecting the medic, like Uber advantage, like flanks, all of those things. They don't bother learning about them, meaning that all older players just don't want to put up with it. For that reason, a lot of new players jump straight back out of competitive TF2 at a very fast rate, unless they decide to learn it and really stick with it. Basically, my belief is that, as I already stated, because it's in a stationary phase, there's another issue. Another problem is that a lot of the older players who are in Prem are still in Prem. They're still playing the same leagues and the same finals over and over again. An example is like Foyotech or Epsilon for years. Foyotech wasn't always Foyotech, but for a while they were HRG, which is like it was a spiritual successor of that. They were 4G. So for that reason, there was a lot of different groups, which are different teams but the same players. So it's technically really the same team in its essence. For that reason, there's no real change in the actual meta of the game. Like, for example, in I-55, nobody was really that surprised when Foyo won. So no one was actually that interested in the end when Foyo won so easily near the end. I kind of switched off near the end when Foyo won so easily. I think that a lot of these newer Prem players will eventually get bored of being in Prem all the time, and they'll come and they'll leave the game. They'll get bored of it. They'll go on to a new competitive scene, or they'll just get out of the game altogether. And suddenly the game will be in the decline phase because all these newer players won't be entering Prem because the game's dying out, and all these older Prem players will be leading to the death phase. This death phase, I believe, will be years to come. I believe it will be quite a while to come. I think it'll be quite a long time because the game still has a chance with matchmaking. But if matchmaking doesn't pull through, I believe in the next 3 to 4 years, I'd say even 5 to 6 years, if we're really pushing it, I think we'll begin to hit the decline phase and later the death phase, and eventually the game will die out. And it's not going to grow to the level that CS is growing, Because CS is still technically, in my opinion, in the log phase. It's still rapidly growing. There's still players constantly joining the game. You could argue it's technically entering the stationary just about like evening out in terms of players entering and players leaving. But I'd say it's still growing rapidly, and really esports have to do that to keep an interest going. Anyway, that's all I think. I think TF2 as a competitive scene will probably die out eventually. It's bound to happen. I'm really irritated to say that to myself, but I have to try and be realistic. And that seems like the reality of the situation, unless matchmaking, and this is a big but, this is a big unless matchmaking changes everything and turns the game into a huge esport. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time, and have a nice day.